Hi, Danny. Hello, everyone. I'm Matt. I'm the founder of Army of Nannies. So we're a UK-based nanny finding platform. So we help families find nannies, but we also help agencies find nannies as well. So we've got a kind of B2C and a B2B part to our business. So I think Danny wrote to me and asked here what the two main themes were. Why did you start your groups, and are there any shortcuts and hacks to help people that are running groups? And I think probably we'll bookend both of those. So we'll start on why I started the groups, and then we'll finish off with the shortcuts. But please, if you've got any questions, Danny will see the chat and he'll just drop those questions in as we go along. So I realized pretty early on that for our platform to work, we didn't need to be so reliable on other people's groups. Being reliable on other people's groups has some limitations. Firstly, we found that we were getting banned from a lot of groups, so that was difficult. That was getting in the way, and then a lot of them wouldn't let us join in the first place. And I think there's this fear of competition. Then we couldn't join with our page. We had to join with a profile, which I think is a really limiting factor. I think that you should be allowed to be a page. I think it's much more transparent. So it was just, and we're also very reliant on the admins of other spaces, on the quality of their group. And often the administration of groups isn't so great. So we were dropping in roles when I'd see other posts from other areas that just weren't really a good thing to be sitting next to, or the comments were getting out of hand. So we kind of came to the decision very quickly that we're going to start our own groups. And one of the main reasons was it was going to be easier to convert both nannies and families from searching on social groups into our ecosystem. And also because we had aspirations to help agencies as well, we thought that beyond just agencies searching on our platform, it would be a real added bonus if they could also access our groups, and we could make our groups almost exclusive to those agencies and to us, so we could start to create quite a powerful proposition in the marketplace. We kind of thought about, well, what kind of groups do we need? And the main purposes of the groups that we thought were, we first of all need to bring nannies together. And we chose to do that in a private way. So we did a private group, which is just nannies. There's no agencies on there. There's no families on there. And that's been a really, really effective group for us. And then we've got an agency to agency group called The Huddle, which is Lauren's in that group, which is great. So that's a really handy place for us to talk to businesses directly. And then we've also got a selection of groups which covers different geographies across the UK. So we've got London groups, Midland, North, basically covering the whole of the country, including Scotland. And that's very much about helping the groups stay on point and stay relevant. So if you're in Birmingham, you probably don't want to hear, you're in the north of England, you don't want to hear about jobs in the south of England. It's fairly irrelevant to you. So if you can keep the groups kind of more tailored to location, that has proved to be a really effective thing. So one of the reasons, the benefits that those groups have brought is, one, they've been really cost effective for us. So there's three types of media. There's kind of owned media, there's earned media, and there's paid for media. So paid for media is, for example, when you're running ads, paid for ads. Earned media is kind of an example of that, when people share your posts or when people allow you onto their groups. But your own media, I think, is the most interesting because it's free. If the time it takes to build them is the cost. And that, I think, is a really good group's an example of that. It's a media space that we own. It's a community that we own. And we can very much focus on sending our messages to that group in a kind of more controlled way. And that helps us with our brand awareness, and it helps us with our conversions. It also, the groups have played a really good role for us. They've got us out to a certain extent of the SEO battle. So I think that you'll find, if you're a website or a business or an agency, and you're promoting against certain keywords, they're expensive. And the stronger the keywords, the more investment you're going to be to get to the top of the list. And so as far as paid for SEO, we've kind of relaxed that slightly, because we know that we've got these groups that now total around 150,000 members spread across the country. And that allows us to have, instead of paying to reach those consumers, those customers, they're coming to our groups, they're posting, and they're also seeing our message. So that's the cost side of it has been really handy. We've also found that certainly with the nanny only group and the agency group, it's a brilliant source of information. So I think we all run content in blogs, and we're always looking for meaningful posts. And if we can back those posts up with stats and quotes, that they're much more powerful. And I'm certainly with the nanny group, if I'm doing a blog post, I'll always put the headlines of the blog post out to that group and say, look, can I have your comments on this? What do you think? What are your issues? And they come back so richly that it's really enhanced our content to have a group where we can go to, a private group where nannies can comment freely, and it's just meant that our content has kind of stepped up because we've got really good call outs within any post that we do. So they're very good for sources of information and supporting your business. The other point is that certainly, so one of our groups is an Instagram. It's an Instagram page. I kind of call that a group account rather, and that is in a sense a group because people do follow you, and therefore they're seeing your posts. But with that, what we found is we're using that to pull in a jobs board into our site. So instead of maintaining a separate jobs board, we're using a tool called Smash Balloon, which is really easy to plug into a website, and it gives you a very visual grid directly pulled in from Instagram. So our jobs board now is effectively our Instagram account. It's kind of off topic, but in a way on topic because it just brings around an efficiency for us. The groups as well, as they've grown, and I didn't plan on this, it's just kind of happened, but they've also become a separate revenue stream for us. In that there are certain companies that will want to be on our groups, and for them to be there, they're now paying a monthly fee to get access just to the groups to share content rather than jobs. And that's great because we've kind of achieved that by keeping the groups really clean and really well maintained. And I think it leads on that if you're thinking about starting a group, really make sure that you want to invest the time and effort into the group, because they're only valuable if they're well managed and if they are offering something of value to the people that are on them. So I'd argue that it takes probably about 25% of my time is spent on Facebook and on Instagram, but mostly Facebook. And the reason why I rate groups and I rate Facebook, I think Facebook has lost its way in an awful lot of areas, but when it comes to community, it's a really strong platform. It's by far better than any of the other platforms out there still. And I think that a lot of people, they come away from Facebook when they get to their 20s or teens even, but then they start to seem to come back on when they have a purpose, a community purpose. And I think parenthood is probably one of the biggest community reasons. And also I think that as the parents are there, the nannies are there. And I've spoken to a couple of Americans now as well about the state of the US market and Facebook, and they echo the same thing, that it still has that relevance when it comes to community and purpose. So kind of that's why I believe that it's worth considering. However, they take time, and you've got to almost have an always on mentality with them, which can be exhausting. They can always become addictive, and you've got to be very, very disciplined not to take up too much of your time away from your core business and put it onto the groups, because they can really, really take over. Some of the reasons why they take up so much time is that we've insisted that all members are approved to the groups unless they have a certain number of connections already within the group. And these are things that admin assists that Facebook has that you can put into place. We also make sure that all comments are moderated as well. So unless we know somebody and we're happy with them, we'll make sure they're on post approval. And that's just to protect the quality of the groups and to make sure that people are seeing things that are relevant and on point. There are some great tools that Facebook has that help you with admin assist, but invariably you will have to have eyes on, and it will take time, and they take a long time to get going as well. it's much, much better and really advised, if you're going to start a group, to go in with somebody and to make sure that you've got moderators, because if it's coming down to one person, it can be really arduous and difficult to maintain. So make sure, I think one of the dangers as well is that if you're inviting admins on, they can take over your page and they can actually kick you off. So be really careful. If you're inviting somebody in as an admin, then make sure it's somebody that you're really well aligned with and that you trust. Better to start the relationship on a moderator basis as opposed to an admin. It limits their functions slightly. But again, they should be there to help you. And there's some really, especially in our community with nannies, there are some fantastic nannies who really want to help the community as a whole. So if you reach out to them and ask them, and you're bound to find people that are there and able to help you. I think as well that with Facebook specifically, I don't know how many of you, I assume you've all got Facebook pages, and I'd certainly promote people using pages as opposed to profiles. I think it's really important to set your business up with a page. But also, if you've got Facebook, then look at the Meta Business Suite, because it gives you great functionality, great insight. You can see the engagement levels. You can moderate much easier through Meta Business than without a Meta Business account. So I think that's really important. So if you're thinking about a group, one of the things to really dig into is, what do you want the purpose of the group to be? There are tons of Facebook groups out there that are already running, that have huge numbers. And I think it's very difficult to suddenly create a group that's the same as everybody else. You probably won't get traction. So I call it almost having a North Star. If you think about, okay, what do you want this group to do better than any other group? Is it about a conversation with parents? In which case, what is the conversation? Where do you want to take it? And be flexible as well. You don't have to be stuck to it, but have a point of view that just stands out, that's a little bit different. And really define from a business point of view, if you've set your kind of mission of what you're doing, also be clear on to what purpose. Is it that you're trying to bring families into your agency and therefore convert them from searching online into an agency post? That's a tough gig. Is it about bringing nannies together and raising the standard of your nannies, or communicating with your nannies? That's a really great purpose to have with a group, and probably better to be done on a private group, where you're allowing them to have a free and open communication channels with you and with each other as well. I think that you can start to integrate your groups with your wider comms as well. So we found that it's great having a blog, but it's difficult to get that blog seen by people. So groups can be a really good way of circulating your content, but they can also be quite transient. So you can make a post and then it kind of disappears down the news feed and it's gone. So having your own group, one of the advantages is that you can do featured posts. So we pretty much always make sure that our strongest content is featured at the top of the group and it permanently stays there. And if something new comes up, we'll take something down and pop something on. So one of the criticisms of things like Facebook and social media is that it comes and it goes, but groups, you've got a real advantage with your own group, because you can keep messaging in front of your users on a more permanent basis, which helps get your right messages out there at the right time. One of my biggest faults, without a doubt, on groups is that I talk a lot about jobs. It's job, 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 and that's boring. And so I rely on other people's posts to actually bring more interest to the groups. So do you think about mixing up your communications? And I'm particularly bad at that just because of limited resources. And I have to kind of remind myself to do different posts. I just see a notification there, Danny. Are there any questions that...
There sure is. Natalie asks a great one. Natalie, I know you're here, so would you like to just actually jump in and ask Matt yourself?
Sure. Thank you. So I own the Private Service Alliance is a membership organization for private service staff. Our primary demographics are estate management and on up. And I found that people once they reach the nanny manager, nanny household manager executive housekeeper, executive assistant, they're not able to get a job if they have a social media profile in the US. It's really hard because they don't want their kids, their estate, their property, their things showing up on other people's feeds. And so I strongly advocate for LinkedIn as being, because it's a professional tool and this is their career and they need to be able to, you know, act like any other professional in any under industry. So I advocate for LinkedIn, and wondering what your thoughts are for both using LinkedIn for groups and also leading candidates, especially nannies, towards a more professional profile to build their reputation in their career.
Okay, yeah, so that's a great question. I think LinkedIn is a good thing to bring into the conversation. I run LinkedIn groups as well, and we've got one which is around 5,000 members, which is again about helping to connect families and agencies to nannies. And it's pretty slow. It's I think, yes, LinkedIn is fantastic for professional profiles, but when it comes to childcare, I think agencies have more success in finding senior C-suite business people that might need a nanny. But when it comes to the general churn of nannies finding roles, it's not so active. It's growing, and it's getting more and more engaged. But it's and also, you know, they say that LinkedIn is social media. It's just happens to be more business focused. What I see a lot of nannies doing in the UK is having almost like it's a profile or a page, and it's not necessarily them that's speaking. It's they've got a persona, they've got a nanny profile that they're putting out there. It could be Nanny Claire, and there'll be an icon, an avatar that she's using, and or there's one called Baby Guru who, you know, it's much less about her as an individual. It's more about her as a professional on Facebook. But I find we don't hear that over here, that people will check social media profiles for sure, but we haven't got to the point where people aren't getting roles because they have a social media account. That sounds particularly harsh. Did that help at all?
Absolutely. Thank you.
It's an interesting insight that people are actually not getting jobs because they've got a social media. I'd always advise nannies that they lock down their social media accounts, that they can't be accessed, and obviously we have rules on all of the groups about sharing things like images and privacy protections. But you know, you can have as many rules as you like on a group. There's always going to be people that break them. So yeah, I can see there is a risk, but that's really kind of a harsh position.
Unfortunately, it's been going on for many years now.
Right. Interesting. And was there another question there? Was that the only one that was?
That so far, that's the one.
So some of the shortcuts that we've been able to find with our groups is that there are a lot of groups out there that are dormant. And if you think a group is something that you want to start, then potentially have a look at other groups that exist and see whether there you can find an admin that wants to give over a group or is looking for another admin or a moderator to join that group. The joining forces is a really good thing. And also you can find groups that, many of our groups that we started, we started with some early momentum because it was people that were leaving the industry or their business had kind of pivoted to something else and their group was less relevant. So we were able to go in and say, look, we'd love to take over your group. Are you interested? And on 2 or 3 occasions, there's been a yes there, and we've been able to take over the group, and they've moved on, and we've inherited their communities, and their communities have been really engaged. So there is always opportunity to look for groups that are out there and bring them into your world. So that was to my surprise. I didn't think that would happen in our journey, but it has. There's currently a group that we're looking after, which has about 50,000 members. I don't really include it in my groups yet because I'm just a moderator on that group. It looked like it was a dead group in the space of about 4 weeks. By clearing out a load of profiles that weren't relevant, by cleaning out old posts that weren't relevant, we've got that group going again. And so my neck and the admins aren't involved at all. So my hope is eventually see some sense, and they'll hand it over because they're not engaged and they're not taking anything from it. Meanwhile, we're migrating people from that group to our other groups, so that's been helpful. But always look out there for other groups that you can take over. And I think also look for businesses that you can partner with. I think this is a great opportunity that you might have a particular community that you want to grow. Let's say it's a parents community, let's say it's around birth. Is there a business that you can go into partnership with and start the group together? You'll be able to generate twice the content, you'll share the workload between each other, which is great. And that will probably accelerate the growth by having a stronger and more express purpose much more readily. So look for partners that can help you work on it. I think as well that you mustn't lose the quality of any group when you start to grow it. You have to keep the quality consistent, and keep challenging the group as well. And I think as you have to also check your engagement levels. You'll see very easily from the Meta Business Suite when a group begins to become dormant or less active. And I think it's really important to make sure that you get in that group and start asking questions and re-engaging and encouraging people within the group to comment to get the engagement up again. Danny, I just noticed a question pop up.
Yeah, let me, Bria asked, is your groups for just nannies or both?
Sorry, just nannies?
Or sorry, or nannies and parents.
So we have groups that are for just nannies only, and we also have groups that are also for nannies and families and agencies as well. They'll be on there. It becomes a little bit of a jobs market. The agencies that are signed up with us can go onto those groups, and I actively encourage them to reach out to parents that are posting on roles to try and bring them into their world, because often a parent will start their journey online. They'll realize that actually it's a difficult, recruiting through social media alone is a difficult thing to do. I'd say the first thing they'll try is maybe working with a platform. The next thing they'll try is working with an agency, or they'll go straight to an agency. So I'm super pleased when I see our member agencies reaching out to families directly to try and bring them into their world. I think that's exactly what they should be doing.
Amazing. And Meryl Ann actually also asks one, do you share content across your group pages? The same stuff on multiple groups?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the things that, without a doubt, especially if it's content that's relevant to them all, we'll put together a post on the page, and then we'll share from the page to the groups with abbreviated copy. And it's a much, much more effective way to work. I see a lot of companies that are posting directly to the groups the same thing over and over again. It's much better to share from your page to the groups. It also then allows you to, from your page, you can then see where you've shared it, and you can put comments on any group from your page. So you can nudge your, even if it's not your group, this is a really good tip, that if you're sharing to a group, do it from your page, and then you can go back to that post, you can see where you've shared it, and you can put comments within your page on the share function that will appear on that group, and it will nudge that post up the group's newsfeed. And that's whether it's your group or whether it's somebody else's. It's a really good practice to post to your page and share from there.
Now, can I ask a question and follow on that?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, and you may have said this before and I missed it, but I know you said well, let me just ask it. So should I post from my personal page or my Choose the Right Nanny page, my business page?
I'm a huge fan of people using their business pages. I think that it sets out the right tone. I think that it supports your business. I think for a business to be credible on a social media platform, you need about 1,500 likes or follows. And that's a bit, if you're a relatively new business, that's a daunting number. Yeah. But you can quickly get there if you're putting your page at the center of everything you do. And if you're posting, again, if you're posting your content to your page and sharing it out, then people will go to your page to see what other content you've got. And invariably after a while, they'll start to like and follow your page. I also recommend that you have run a likes campaign on Facebook, preferably with a little bit of targeting. A lot of people say don't use targeting. I think you should use a little bit of targeting, even if it's just parents or just nannies, so just to make sure that you're keeping the people that are following your page and liking your page on point.
So I don't know what that means because I'm old. So how do I run a likes campaign?
So if you've got a page, do you use Meta Business Suite?
Yes,
Okay, great. So do you have a Meta Ads account?
I think so. I'm not sure.
They're really easy to set up. I'll try and dig out and explain a video for online. Make a note of that. But it's easy to set up, and when you create an ad on Facebook, you through your Facebook or Meta Ads account, you can run different types of ads, and one of them will be an awareness campaign.
Okay.
An awareness campaign, and you can set the objective of that campaign as well. And there are specific types of campaigns that encourage likes. So you can put your logo out there with a short message about what you're doing. You might have a blog piece that you think is really engaging that explain, or a blog piece which explains your agency and its purpose. Those things are really good for likes campaign, and Facebook will then put that campaign in front of people that you've targeted. So you've selected, it could just be parents with children aged 0 to 3, for example, and it will find the parents in the location that you're promoting in that are most likely to engage with your content and like your content. And it can just run in the background. It can be a couple of dollars a day, that's all. And before no time, you'll start to get to that 1,000, 1,500 marker. The reason why I say get to 1,000, 1,500 followers is purely through credibility. When somebody comes and has a look at your page, we all do it. The first thing we look at is how many follows, how many likes has it got, and it just sets it up as, okay, this is something I can trust. Other people have liked it enough to follow it or to like it. Therefore, I've got a little bit more faith that it's a good place to be.
Well, thank you. I think that's great information, and I'm gonna get on that.
I think as well that often, even if you're not very active on social media, that families, when they're researching your agency, they will, just like you'll look to see whether a nanny has got a social media account, which in the US isn't a good thing. But if a family checks out an agency, the first place I'd go for a business is to see their online footprint and to have a look. And do they have good content? Do they engage? Do people follow them? So it's a really good thing to do, even though it might not be about creating a community. It becomes a proof point. I think as well, just building on that, everybody has social logos on their homepage or in their footer that encourage people to go and have a look at their spaces. The amount of agencies that have broken links just shocks me. It's one of the things that really makes me, you go to their page on their website page, and you click on their Facebook link or their LinkedIn link, and it goes to nowhere, or it goes to the Wix who they built their site with. Make sure those links work. But if you've got those links on your page, make sure that they are actually sending them to somewhere of value. People still have Twitter or X accounts that they've not posted to for 3 years, and on their homepage, they're sending people over to it. Why? You're sending people to somewhere to check you out and to see what you're about that you don't even look after. And you haven't looked after yourself, or it's broken. I think it sends a really poor message that might make people click away from your website. So do check your social links.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
That's okay.
Bria asked a follow-up that's saying, I'm thinking of having a group for just nannies and babysitters. What does your content consist of to keep it engaging for just nanny groups?
So I have the same group in the UK. It's one of our biggest groups, actually, funnily enough. It's got about 22,000 members, 21,000 members, and it's really, really active. I actually probably post least to that group of all of my groups. That the actual community has got just post an awful lot to that group. And I always encourage, one of the things that's really important to do is when you start these groups, when people start to engage, acknowledge that they're engaging. Say, you can set up very easily a weekly hello message that will go out at your busiest time. Have that in place, and that's a great opportunity as the group owner. Only you can do this, that you can then say, hey, come and have a look at our website. We'd love to support your search. That's a really good owned media point that you kind of get because you own the group. Let the group find its way, let it find its engagement, keep it on point. But the reason why that nanny babysitting group does well is because over in the UK, and I think you're seeing it as well in the US, there's a little bit of a pivot in the marketplace, less full-time roles, more ad hoc roles. Less full-time roles, more part-time and ad hoc roles. So we started that group to kind of help in that space, and it has done. And I think, yeah, it's definitely a really important group to have at the moment, considering the dynamics of the marketplace. But also have a look out there. Is there a group that you can help that might be easier than starting your own?
Awesome. I have a question. You might actually be getting to it, but I feel like it's based on like everything that you're mentioning. I'm actually going to ask you two questions because I have the floor right now. What is that group size where you're like, oh, that's like a tipping point where people will like take you seriously, or like where like it starts being an impact? And what are like what are some of the things that like are just like, if you're doing like a group, like you have to do these certain things? I'm imagining like rules or a certain amount of posts a week, or I don't know, but like, what are just like some of those like really basic things?
Okay, let's start with the kind of size of group. So I think a bit like a page. I think groups start to get serious and start to get more engagement once you get to about the 1,500 number. That seems to be about the magic number for when suddenly people will go to it and they'll feel more comfortable in joining the group. So that means you've got to work really hard on getting to that 1,500 number. And this kind of fits in with the rules comment. A while ago, there was a chap a guy who was in his 40s. He had a high level of disability and he needed a team of carers. And he posted to one of our groups. Now, bearing in mind it's a nannying group, I kind of cut that leeway because I thought, actually it's also a care group. So this is a good post. He put together a lovely post, great imagery, and everybody that liked that post, and I liked his post, he immediately came back and said, hey, how are you, Mac? Are you looking to help, or can you help? And I went back going, I run the group, but somebody else liked it, and he'd go, hi, are you interested in helping me? And he just created his engagement, which is a really, really clever thing to do. This guy reminded me the importance of engagement. So the meta algorithm, when you post, how you get your post seen more, whether it's on a group or on your page, is to encourage engagement. And it's a bit like making a snowman and rolling the snow. The more engagement you get, the bigger it gets. And the more Facebook will look at that post and go, this is a really good post because people are engaging with it. People are liking it. People are sharing it. People are commenting on it. I'm going to show this. We're going to put this post into more and more news feeds because actually what Facebook wants is more engagement. So the more engagement that you create, the more that Facebook will get behind you. And you can cheat the system, not cheat the system, you can play the system slightly. So you can put a post out there, instead of reposting the same thing time again, ask a question. Give a little fact, give a tip that is going to be interesting. Ask people, if somebody likes it, did you find this interesting? How can we help you? What other topics would you like? There are also certain types of posts. If you look online, you'll see this. There are certain posts that will encourage more and more engagement. Polls are really good. Also quizzes are fantastic. We've got this first aid quiz that we've been running for the last 3 years. I have to keep and checking, first aid advice changes. So every now and again, I have to go through it. I don't think I've ever got 10 out of 10 on it, which is really bad considering I wrote the quiz. But every now and again, I put that post out there, I'll put a little bit of spend behind it. It does fantastically well for us. So that quizzes, definitely have a go at them. I use Typeform for quizzes. I think it's a great little questionnaire tool, survey tool. Also, putting things out, if you're preparing a blog post, go to the group and ask the group, what would you like to see in this blog post? And our community, nannies, are so willing to help, but also so are families. Mums are are super supportive. They're in a stage in their life where they're either sponges for information or they're willing to give advice and information. So, use your group to your advantage, and very much create your own content, create your own engagement within the group and encourage engagement. One of the things, going back to the rules comment, yeah, definitely set rules for your group and definitely stick to those rules. One of the things that's really good to do is reward engagement. So there are badges that you can have, you can put in place on your group, like giving out the expert badge. There's, I think you set it through admin. There's engagement badges that people get. And I know it sounds silly, but we're suckers for it. If somebody gets, this person is putting really good content out there, I'm going to make them an expert in the group. And they love it. They come back even harder on the group because they feel valued. So, don't see your members of your group as customers. See them as people, see them as enthusiastic people on the topic that they're coming to because they're in that group, and really nurture them and speak to them and engage with them. And I think that's probably one of the most important things you can do within a group is make people feel valued and special, and encourage their participation. Was there something else popped up there? Was there another?
Marilyn has another question. Marilyn,
Yeah.
if you want, you can jump back in.
Hello again.
Hi.
Okay, so I do have a couple of pages, but I wanted to know, I like your idea of appealing to specific groups. However, I'm also like really sick of seeing groups that say Nannies of South Texas or Moms of the Dominion area type thing. So I want to know what goes into your thought process as far as naming your pages. I mean, you could come up with any name, obviously, but I want that name to also attract my clientele or my nannies into the group. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm just looking at my list of groups, and I think I've probably fallen the wrong side of your what you like and what you don't like. Because a lot of my groups are quite generic. They are search groups, and what we're trying to do is marry those people that are looking for childcare with childcare. I actually think that agencies can be much more creative, and I think that you can start to set a very distinct purpose for your group. So if you're doing a generic group, it's probably okay to follow those conventions. If you just want a group that's going to scale, that is going to be purely about matching families and nannies, but an agency won't do that because they actually have a different purpose for a group, or one would think, because they want to do the matching, not the families and the nannies directly in the group. So when you're setting up a group that has a distinct purpose, then yeah, I think you can be much more creative in its naming. Probably the best group name that we've got is the Agency Huddle. So that's just nanny agencies. And I think in that name, I'm quite pleased with that one because it's much more about bringing agencies together and encouraging work. And a huddle is a phrase that uses an agile technology methodology. So we thought it's a great word to pull in because it's tech based, and a lot of the content is helping agencies with technology. So that there we were a bit more creative, but a lot of our groups were quite generic. If you're doing a group that's serving a particular niche and has got a really good point of view, absolutely, really indulge yourself with the name, and you can always change the name. All of these things, all of your targeting can change. Interestingly, on the rules, I think that, which Danny mentioned, I think it's really good to have your purpose laid out in the group. Make it clear in the intro when you're setting it up. Make sure the name is pulling through to the URL as well. You see a lot of groups that are just numbers. You can tailor that to a specific name. Also, again, a bit like SEO, if you've got a really good description, make sure you've got those buzzwords that when people are searching for things, Facebook knows to present that group to that person. So it's very much like SEO on a website. With a group in your short summary, you've got to have those buzzwords there.
Okay, like if you're targeting a luxury crowd, high net worth, vacation, those kind of things.
Yeah, see, I always think that you go to a party, the most boring person at a party is the person that talks about themselves. So if you just talk about yourself in a group, you're going to be the most boring group in the world. So what you're talking about is fun because you can be really creative in the nature of the group that you're running. It can have a really different viewpoint. So one of my businesses is called Army of Mums, and I've forgotten the name of the group now, but I think it's called Yes I Can. And that, so Army of Mums is about helping mums back into work after they've had kids. It's not quite fully launched, but we started the groups. The Yes I Can group is about giving a space to mums to celebrate the victories that they're having. You know what, I've got back into my career, or you know, I've actually written my CV. I've been out of the game so long, but I've actually got my CV written and I'm now ready to go. Or I've actually reached out to a recruitment consultant. Now that isn't job finding. That's just about indulging mums in their journey and celebrating their little successes as they try and get back into their work game. So that's, I think, a pretty good example of where we haven't just done a group that is about jobs. We've tried to think about the mindset of the mum. We've tried to think about, well, where are they? How can we help that? What helps them along the way? What encourages them? Let's do something about, you know, small wins. So that's an example of kind of thinking laterally, I think, about where your community is and what they might like to hear about that is adjacent to what you're doing, but not directly. You're not that boring person just talking about yourself. You're trying to give a richer, more indulgent experience to bring them into your world.
I think that's great. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Matt, Bria has a question for you. Bria, jump on.
Yeah. Yeah, so my question is, do you have like any tips on having a group for just parents or moms specifically? I'm not interested in like having a group for parents, where parents are in there and nannies,
Yeah.
but something where, and I'm not a mom, but I've been a nanny and I, own the agency. I was just like wondering like what type of mom groups or parent groups I could have.
What's your business? What business are you running?
Yeah, I have a nanny agency.
Okay.
So we do babysitting
so I think it's always. And you're a mum, did you say?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so so I was going to say it's always easiest so the first thing I do is have a chat with mums. I hope you've got friends that are mums and say, I'm thinking about starting a group. What would be helpful? What would you like to hear about? And maybe there's a couple of mums out there that are friends that'll go, you know what, I've got some time on my hands. I'll do it with you. And I think that's an exciting thing that you suddenly you're working with a friend who is potentially on maternity leave. She's probably bored to death of being with her child, day in, day out.
Right.
So is there a chance there's a mum out there who's got great business skills that isn't using them, that would just like to be in a community? And who knows, she may take it on to somewhere else and it might seed her next adventure. But certainly the first thing to do is speak to your audience. And if you can't directly project from your own experience, do some research and try different things, put some surveys out there. Again, I think I know there's Survey Monkey, which is good. For me, Typeform is the best experience for getting, we get much better completion rates on things like Typeform than we do on Survey Monkey and the like, and Google. And get it out there, and seed it into different groups. Have a look at, do some stalking in different groups. Have a look at what's out there. Have a look at what posts are getting the most engagement and see whether you can capture themes. And I'm sure it changes from country to country and probably state to state. What works in one state probably might not work in another one. So really do look at your local groups and see what's working. See what's causing a buzz, and don't be afraid to try it and change it.
Right. And so I have a question too, really quick. Like, what's the ultimate purpose or goal of having a group? So like, for instance, like if I have a nanny group, which is solely for nannies and babysitters, ultimately I want to recruit them and them to join the agency. So like with me having a group for moms and parents, isn't my ultimate goal to kind of have them utilize our agency and things like that to bring, or like what's the sole purpose of a group, you would say?
Well, that depends on you, but just when you say to bring them into the agency, do you mean to bring them into the agency as an employee, or to bring them in as a family that is going to use
a family client
that's going to use your services? So I would be focusing on it's that age group that is before they start getting care. So, or it could be, so I think before there are mums out there. I've got jobs. I had a job on my site the other day, but it's for 2026, and I just cried inside slightly. But so there are people that do forward plan ridiculously, and we've got loads of roles that are midway through 2025 already, which is just bizarre. But I think that if you're chatting to mums that have got 1 month old or 2 month old, it's at that point that they start to think, there's going to be this one-to-one care is going to stop, and I'm going to have to think about another dynamic soon and set it up. And so I'd be focusing on that age group. Yeah, for sure. And trying to find content that starts to engage them. Or it's potentially writing blog posts and circulating those blog posts on groups that are already talking to that community.
Okay. Gotcha.
I noticed pop up that, yikes, it sounds like a lot of work. Yeah, it can be.
Thank you.
But I think you should only do it when you really know that the strategy is going to work, that there's a point to the work. For me, because I have a business side, a business to business side, I seek to support agencies. It's super relevant for me to do that because I can basically take the time away from those agencies from having to go on all the groups. I can post on the groups for them, or they can post on our groups, and I commit to making sure those groups are kept at a really high standard. Unlike many agencies, if we think about a funnel, that here's where the first meet goes right down at the bottom of the funnel to when that first week in the job, I'm at the top of the funnel, and that's where my platform operates. Whereas you guys are working all the way through the funnel, and I think a lot of the time things that take you away from actions further down the funnel, that conversion from getting a job to getting a nanny to the interview to getting them into their first day. It's got to really work for you, because every second you spend away from the bottom of the funnel where is taking you off is basically distracting you. So it really must have a good purpose.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's okay. There's another question.
Hi, yes, that's for me. I may have missed this because I joined a little late. I was stuck on some meetings. But as far as when you start a new group, did you cover marketing? I feel like I jumped in and heard that you did some sort of paid ads, right? Was that for the group directly, or did I mishear that?
So I've actually never run a paid ad for a group.
Okay.
And the reason I haven't done that is because if you paid ads, that you can do targeting, but you're going to get a broad. Facebook will choose how it's going to. Facebook wants to spend your money. Yeah, if you give them $20 to spend in 24 hours, sure as hell they'll spend that $20, right? So their job is to go, you've got this money, spend it. They will obviously. There's a bit of quality in there. They'll think, okay, it's got to be the right people, so that they obviously will do some targeting. But you trust me that if you said, right, I want to grow this group to 1,000, I'm going to do it through money, you could do it overnight, very quickly, and Facebook will kind of happily send you people that roughly look like what you're looking for. Organic growth is much, much more powerful, because then that's people that aren't likely to click on the ads. It's people that want to click on you and want to join you because they like the purpose of the group, they like the copy in the group, or they want to add to the group. That's much more powerful than spending money with Meta to get people into your group. So I've always taken the rule that a better group is one that has a community that wants to be there and they've chosen to be there, rather than ones that I've spent money to Facebook to get it in front of them, and Facebook has gone, these people like joining groups, we'll send them this ad. So that's my personal view on it, and it takes longer to build it.
Right. So would you say that organically it gets found pretty quickly?
So sorry, could I talked over you? Sorry, what was that?
So would you say organically it kind of gets brought to the surface pretty easily? Because I find with a couple groups that I've started that people just start joining and I don't even know how they really found it. They just kind of run into it per se.
So there are membership questions that you can ask within the group. So you've got the admin assist where you can say, I'll let people in if they know 3 people in the group. That's all fine. But you can bolster that. When people apply to join your group, you can set 3 questions and share the rules. I think it's really important to ask those questions. And that just sets out what the group is, and it's a way of making sure you've got the right people in the group. They've at least met that minimum requirement. And then as well, if you start seeing people that are posting that are off board, just take them out of the group, just block them. People are very sensitive about, they've got to go through a warning process. No, they haven't. It's your group. I just take them out. And if somebody's posting irrelevant content, and one of the big areas where I just take them out. It's just no discussion, remove them. It's more important, and you've got to save your time. You haven't got time to get into dialogue. If somebody's off point, take them out.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Matt, I think we're kind of, we've monopolized your time with all of our questions. Is there a few points you want to leave us on, and then we can do our raffle for the True Diligence people? Maybe where they can learn more about you.
So if you have a look on Facebook, we're Army of Nannies, armyofnannies.com. And by all means, if you give us a follow, we'll follow you back. I think it's really important to follow each other, by the way. I think that's a good thing to do. Just generally in your own markets as well, follow your competitors, and if nothing else, you get to see their posts. The big final thought on groups is don't get obsessed. And it's really, don't get sucked into it. Remember what your core business is. And if something like running a group starts to take up too much time, you're actually hurting your business. And look for other solutions, like going to other people's groups or helping moderate other people's groups. It's so easy to get, and hands up, this is my problem, that it's very easy to get just sucked into it, and you find yourself accepting people into a group at 10:30 at night or at the weekend, all the way through the weekend, and you can really become obsessed by these bloody groups. So do keep an eye and moderate yourself, and set your rules, and remember, if something's not working, just turn it off. Just, you don't need to keep flogging it. Or either adapt it, change its purpose, or get rid of it. Don't keep flogging something that's not serving you. That's it.
Amazing. Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for doing all of this, answering all of our questions. I know that there's probably many more things we could ask you, and so hopefully maybe we can get you to come back sometime. Yeah, absolutely. And if you message me from Army of Nannies Facebook page, I'll get back to you. I'm always responsive. So please send me a message if there are any outstanding questions.